It's often exciting to look to the future of UNO, what it might be like in times to come. Sometimes, though, it's important to stop and take a good look at the past of the university, the people and the happenings that help make the excitement of future history possible. With this in mind, join me for Reflections in Time. Well, here we are in the HPER building in the summer of 1983 on a very hot summer day, but we're here for a pleasant purpose, and that is to visit with Dr. Bill Hockett, who's been a part of our university family for many, many years, to make him a part of our Reflections in Time. Bill, you know, I've known you for, I guess, about 30 years or so. I guess you've been here and then some ever since I came, which was in about the mid-50s. We won't talk about when you got here, but first I want to find out, I don't think I've ever asked you this in all the years I've known you, before you ever came here and became part of our business college and department and school. You came from somewhere, you and your good wife, Marge. Where do you folks hail from?
That's right, Paul. Before I hit that, let me just hit two things that you've just said. One is that I am not a doctor. I came here with my MBA degree from Denver University in 1949, and I know that today this would not be true, but from that point that I came, I was never asked to continue beyond the MBA and pursue the PhD degree, and so as a result I have continued to teach. I did receive my CPA certificate, and so I have taught, and I do not have a PhD degree.
Yeah. That's not unusual with some of the older faculty members. You and me and a lot of other people weren't required to do some of the things the younger people today have been involved with.
That's right.
Now, let's go back again a little farther in history to before you ever went to school. You came from what part of the country, Bill?
Well, let's see. I came from Kansas, and I had gone to school at Fort Hays, Kansas State College. Until 1943.
You're a farm boy by background?
Yes, I'd come from the farm. And, you know, that was about World War II times, so I got into a program that they had at that time, a V7 program. This allowed me to finish my degree in 1943, and then I went into the Navy and served 3 years. Then when I got out in 1946, I didn't know what in the world I was going to do. And so it was a hot summer, about like we have now, and I received a call at home from a Dr. Thompson, who had been the head of the business college at Hayes. And he asked me if I would want to teach that fall. And at that time, there was a shortage of teachers.
Had teaching ever entered your mind as a possibility?
Never once thought about it. Never once thought about it. At that point, I'd just gotten out of the Navy, and I thought I'd have to stay around water. But that hasn't developed. But he called me, and so I took the position at Fort Hays, Kansas State in fall of '46, and enjoyed it. And he, you know, talked to me about going on to get a master's. So that fall I went to Denver University and spent 2 years there. Were
you married by this time?
No, that's coming up.
Oh, all right, we have missed that.
But while we were there, we did meet Margie. And as a result of those 2 years teaching and taking graduate work and courting her, I finished in 1949, and we were married in August of '49. Now during that period of time of between '46, when there was a shortage of teachers, and the time I got my degree in '49, there was oversupply of teachers. So when I graduated in '49 that summer, before we got married in August, I couldn't even find a job.
There just wasn't anything to...
There weren't any. I'd sent resumes all over. But after we were married in August, and we were coming back from Florida, where my wife lived, we stopped in Wichita, and I went to Wichita State to talk to them, and they said they didn't have anything, but they had received a call from Dean Helmstetter at OU, and that they were looking for someone. So I called, and talked to Dean Helmstetter, and he said yes, they were interested in finding someone. And so they asked me to come up, and I talked to Dean Helmstetter and been in charge of the dean's office. And as a result of that, I did get my, I was going to say first teaching position, but it's been my only one since then.
Yeah. Now, what year was this, 49?
This was August of 49.
And so it was zip right after you were married and started to travel up north, you landed on the job here. And did we have, at that time, I don't think we did, we didn't have a business college.
No.
We had a department within liberal arts, didn't we?
Was it liberal arts or applied arts?
All right.
No, wait a minute. Well, I think it was applied arts.
All right. With
and
Helmstetter was the dean.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And was John Lucas here then?
He was the dean of students.
But he was not a part of the business school or department at that time?
Not, I don't believe as such, but of course he was teaching the marketing courses and all in that department under Dean Helmstetter.
Now here's a little tougher one to remember back.
I probably won't remember.
Oh, yeah. But when you came, that was the first experience you had coming to Omaha and coming to the University of Omaha. As we look around the campus in the summer of 1983, you and I both can think of buildings covering them in fingers on both hands that weren't here when we arrived, probably.
Right.
What was the campus like when you first took a look at it?
Well, I remember we drove in that evening, and right outside the campus, when we drove in, we didn't know where we were going to stay, and so we saw this sign, Rose's Lodge, and thought it was a motel, and found out it was a chicken
and still
eating place. So we went downtown, we're going to live high, and we went to Fontanelle. And we got a room there. I must say, as I remember, it wasn't cleaned up. They had to call somebody in and clean up the room. I don't know what their occupancy rate was. Must have been full. But we stayed there the first night, and then we came out to the campus the next morning. Was
the campus almost what you'd call in the country?
Yes, it was. 72nd, of course, was the cornfields, and the only thing there was Kenny's. And so there wasn't much here but the field house and the administration building, and boy, that was it, wasn't it? Field house had just been
maybe
completed.
Some of those temporary permanents out
back.
Yes,
they were there, weren't they? Yeah, they were there. So we came out that morning and saw the campus, and everything we owned was in the car. And I think when Dean Lucas came out to the car to meet Margie, he about fell over when he saw that this was our worldly possessions in the car. But yeah, the campus was very small but pretty, very pretty.
Now, do you recall, it's a personal matter, but it's nice to reflect on it now as times have changed, what they offered you for a salary that first time around? I suppose it was big at that time, but what was it?
$2,700 for the 9 months.
For 9 months. $2,700. And you were going to do what? Teach what?
Well, I sort of thought I was going to teach accounting since my degree was in accounting. I remember the first semester or two I taught everything but accounting. I taught corporation finance and investments and retailing. And finally, after about a year, I got some accounting courses. Paul Crossman, you remember, was here at that time. And he was in charge of the accounting, and so I finally got into some accounting courses. Now,
when we talk about the Department of Business at that time, and that's what it was within the College of Liberal Arts, I suppose, until it changed. How big a faculty, what kind of program did you have totally? You mentioned accounting, corporate finance. Was it rather a small curriculum and a small number of faculty people, at least full-time, that taught all the courses?
Yeah, it was a very small number of faculty compared to now. I don't remember for sure. There were probably maybe a dozen or so faculty that taught business courses. Right.
Some of them might have been part-time downtown people, or were those full-time?
There were some, not as many as we've had over the years since, but there probably were one or two.
What kind of a major could a young boy or girl get if they came to University of Omaha in those days in the business area? What kind of an emphasis could they get in their total program?
Well, I don't think at that time we had areas of specialization as we started calling them, you know, like in accounting, marketing, finance. We didn't have those. It was more or less just a general business. General business degree.
General business degree.
Right.
How about the student body? Now, as we visit in 1983, we have usually between 15 and 16,000 part and full-time students in the fall and spring. Wasn't that way, was it?
No, there weren't that many students, but the parking was still a problem. However, I do remember at that time, as far as faculty staff parking, we had our own parking place with our name on it.
Right.
So that's all changed.
And right close to the building.
Yeah. And as far as large classes, we had large classes then. I remember we taught classes up on the, what was it, 4th floor of the administration building, what's now the Fine Arts building, in an auditorium type room up there, and we would have 60, 100. We had large classes then.
I was going to ask you too, as we're talking about those fairly early days of your time here, Bill, what, if you can remember, was the attraction to you and Margie when you came here? Was it just that it was a job, or were there things about the university or the city that you noticed that you liked? You must have liked because you stayed here a long time.
That's right, but really it was a job. We'd never seen Omaha before. And so the only attraction at that point in time was a job. And of course it's interesting as you think back on that. This was 1949 when...
right after the war almost.
Yeah, and jobs were hard to find, and then after I got here in 1950, the Korean War broke out, so then we had plenty of jobs. So it's this old timing factor.
It's just an iffy.
Yeah.
A year later, and who knows, you might have been somewhere in the other part of the world.
Could be.
Yeah. No.
In fact, I was still in the Naval Reserves and a little shook up at that time. I remember wondering if they'd call me back like they did Bird Jelkin and some of the people.
Yes, a number of them were called back in, but you were not.
No.
So you settled in and stayed.
Right, and I was happy. At that point in time, I always said down through the years, if I wasn't happy, I'd leave.
Now, do you remember, as you began, as you described it, it was a department within Dr. Helmstedter's division, or a college of applied arts, right? Now, when did that all start to change, and how did it come about?
Well, I guess, Paul, that was sometime in the mid-50s that things were growing, and so it finally revolved that we would set up a separation there from the College of Applied Arts, and we established the, well, eventually the College of Business.
Well, did it start out as a school and then evolve into a college, or was it
remember that
it was
a
college?
School. I think when it finally evolved out of Applied Arts College, it became a college.
And did John Lucas head it right from the start?
Yes.
So he moved over from being Dean of Students to that particular role. I thought at one time, and maybe I was in error, that...
Maybe wrong, too.
No, I didn't mean it that way. But that the School of Business, or the Department of Business, was in the Liberal Arts College for a while. But maybe not. Maybe it never was there. Because originally there was only one college here, really, and that was Liberal Arts. Then came the one we've described.
The Applied Arts?
Yeah.
I remember one time we had a very popular degree, you know, that was a combination of engineering and business. So then as we evolved into a separate College of Business, well, this sort of separated too. But Dean Helmstetter, of course, had the engineering courses under his direction and the business courses. And I don't recall that we were ever a school.
No.
I guess.
One thing, and you've taught for a lot of years now, Bill, was teaching young people in the area of business different? Were the students different? Was it different in any way that you can recall back in those early 50s, late 40s?
Well, I guess I could compare it to now. Because I think at that time, as I recall, the students were very conscientious. Again, I think it was partly because of the economy. Jobs were rather difficult to find, and so they were very conscientious and worked very hard because they knew they had to do well if they expected to get a position when they graduated. And I think that's sort of the situation we're in today. I think the students are very serious today and conscientious and want to do the best they can, but because they know about the job market, that it's kind of rough.
And it's a very tight market, just like it was when you came out with your master's.
Very comparable.
40-some, 30-some years ago.
That's right.
Right. Say, Bill, we've come to about the end of our first tape segment, so we'll take a pause, little breather, and come back with another segment in just a moment.
Very good.
This is the summer of 1983. We're visiting with Bill Hockett from the College of Business about his reflections in time. Here we are on tape number 2. It's the summer of 1983, and our guest on Reflections in Time is Bill Hockett from our College of Business here at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. But when Bill came, and when I came, when lots of people came, it wasn't the University of Nebraska, it was the University of Omaha. But as you mentioned in tape number 1, Bill, you had a reasonably small faculty, really, as you began in the late 40s, early 50s. Then it evolved into a college out of a department within liberal, or rather applied arts. Now, if you can go back in memory to the early days of teaching, what you taught, and how things were added, changed, how specialties came. You said first there was just simply a emphasis in business. A person got a major in business with no special other emphasis. When did these other things start to come in, and what were they?
Well, I guess this was during the mid-50s and approaching, well, around the mid-50s, most of it. And so then we started developing these areas of specialization in business.
What are some of the first ones we developed?
Well, accounting was one of the first. It was the first one.
The first
accounting was
real
the first
major.
one. And then the others fell into place. Marketing, finance, real estate, insurance. But accounting was the first one.
All right, and that's where you've spent a good share of your life, isn't it?
Right.
Now, for a young boy or girl, or an older one, who came back to adult education programs here, when you changed to that emphasis so they could get an accounting major, were the requirements added, changed much, or was it much the same as it was in the early 50s? What happened in the way of curriculum changes?
Well, again, I think as far as accounting was concerned and is concerned, probably haven't had as many changes as maybe some of the other programs. We have added additional accounting courses, but our basic program is still the same program as far as majors are concerned in accounting. They still take the same accounting courses. So they've been updated, of course, and kept current, but still basically they take the principals and the intermediate and the advanced and the auditing and the tax and the governmental, the same accounting courses.
Right down the line.
Right.
I was wondering, certainly you could have made an observation on this, the thing that's come along lately we hear so much about and has so much to do with our lives is the computer.
That's right.
What is the computer doing, and what might it do to, well, your area of concern,
That's right.
accounting?
Well, of course, yes, we have the computers available today, and we use them in some of the accounting courses because they're available. But we still have other accounting courses that we don't use the computer because, after all, they're learning certain concepts in theory, and you learn that without a computer. Then you use the computer later because, as they've been saying for a long time, you know, Paul, on the computers, it's garbage in, garbage out. So unless they get a good background in their area, which we're talking about right now, accounting, the computers aren't going to do them any good.
And so they have to have the basic beginning anyway.
Right. And computers, it's just another one of these gadgets we've got that we didn't have. And these keep coming out all the time, don't they? But still, there's still that basic understanding and keeping current with new thoughts and ways of doing things that are really more important than some of the periphery things that we can speed up the work and all that with the computer. We still have to have this good foundation.
The basic system of bookkeeping, of accounting, of keeping a set of good books at home or in a small business, that really hasn't changed much for the last 30, 40 years, has it?
No, that hasn't changed too much. Of course, the big thing in accounting that's changed is that we have these regulatory bodies, both public and private, and they are publishing a lot of information continuously as to how things have to be done, maybe differently than what we were doing.
So form can change occasionally, as well as content?
So our form changes and our content changes, and all of this means that accounting is an area that you just have to, like a lot of other areas, you got to stay on top of it, or you're going to get outdated. Now,
when you began teaching in, let's say, 1950-ish, when a person graduated from the University of Omaha, what kinds of jobs were available to them if they majored in business? Where did they go to work if they could in those years?